Breaking news! As you already know, we're coming to Denver for the True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival. And if you haven't already snagged those tickets, act fast and use our promo code COVEN to save 15%. But we have even more big news, party people.
Yes, we do. We will be in Denver early for a live show on Wednesday, July 10th. 2024 at the O Theater.
Oh!
Doors are at 7. The show is at 8. We will have merch. And we will have a VIP Q&A to follow.
Oh.
And you might recall the last time we did a live show in Denver.
Well, I hope you do recall, because I barely do.
I recall. You might not recall.
I barely recall.
The last time we were in Denver, we
flew too close to the sun.
We activated
Yep.
fully. So that was a trip.
Literally.
So this one is bound to be just as wild, but maybe slightly less messy because our tolerance is much higher these days.
I'm high right now, so get your tickets before they sell out. Head to wineandcrimepodcast.com for that sweet, sweet link and more information.
We'll see you on July 10th in Denver, baby.
Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Listening to Wine and Crime, where two friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accent.
You darn tootin' we do.
Darn tootin'. This is a big week for us.
Oh my gosh. As the crow flies, we're heading into Hog Girl weekend. We've been busy this week.
Very busy. We got our happy hour tonight. Not that anyone listening to this now cares.
Because this is like a month ahead. But whatever. It's fine.
Whatever.
We're pumped.
We're jazzed.
We're cruising.
We're fucking on the ball.
Yeah.
We've got a cool episode for you today. But first, I'm Lucy.
Oh, I'm Amanda.
And today we have
it's a very special fan pick.
It's a very special fan pick from a very special fan. This one was chosen by MJ, who is one of our very talented researchers and writers who helps me with my cases. MJ started like a year ago.
Yeah, she's a badass.
We met her in New York City. That was so sweet. She met my mom.
Oh, the cutest.
And she recently graduated college with I don't know. She's so fucking smart.
Yeah.
And this episode is sort of an extension of that because the topic is banned books.
Oh man, such a hot, applicable topic. Not just now, but it feels like always.
Yeah.
Folks are always trying to ban literature.
These are some especially trying times, and we're going to learn a lot about it today because according to MJ, quote, this topic has literally taken a year and a half away from my life. I published a paper and then wrote my thesis on this.
Damn, girl.
And I will put a link to MJ's published paper in the notes, which will be on the blog in case you want to go read it. It is very in-depth.
Yeah.
We're
just going to spend like 4 hours today reading MJ's paper. Just kidding.
No. Well, kind of.
Okay, 2 hours. Calm down.
Well, before we get to banned books, which I know we're going to have a lot to say about.
I'm sure we will.
Amanda, what's our wine crime pairing?
I have paired today's episode with Tooth and Nail Destinata Syrah. Look how gorgeous this bottle is.
Oh my.
She's a beaut. Beautiful color. Like, look at that. Look at that pinky red.
Bloody.
I'm a big fan. I picked this because I was really inspired by my case today and how folks throughout history and currently have fought tooth and nail to preserve their histories and their culture and how incredibly important the written word is to that preservation, which I know we're going to get to. It's book banning is fucking wild, and the resistance to work against that is so fucking inspiring and cool. But before we dive into all of that, a little bit about this gorgeous wine. This is a 100% Syrah from Santa Barbara County. You're going to get fresh, fruity aromas of boysenberry, plum, cranberry, dark red wild berries. You can really see that like red berry in the color, which I'm excited about.
It's very red.
But it's balanced out with, some herbaceous notes like anise, peppercorn. The website boasts that the palate is loaded with tension and energy, delivering blue fruit flavors interlaced with white pepper, exotic coffee bean, and earthy notes. This is a rounded mouthfeel that gains lift with juicy acidity on the finish. I am super pumped about it. It also uses a pretty cool, like old school winemaking technique. So every effort in the making of this wine was made to stay true to the source and nature's intent. So like sustainability in their winemaking is very important.
We will get back to that theme in my section for sure.
Oh dear. Okay. I was wondering why. Yeah.
The true meaning of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering why you gave an evil giggle to that, but yeah, I like it. The grapes were hand harvested in the cool morning hours of October 3rd, 2022. So she's fairly young. The fruit was destemmed and fermented with native yeast in concrete over a period of 10 days. So that concrete fermentation is similar to stainless steel, where it like won't mess with the flavor profile of the actual grapes. It spent 10 days on the skins and then was filtered out. The wine was then pressed off into neutral French oak to finish it, with a secondary fermentation to let it mature a little bit for 8 months. And then it was bottled unfined and unfiltered in June of 2023.
Do you have any insight as to why one would use cement versus stainless steel if it does the same thing, which is to have no added flavor?
I would imagine that cement is much more porous, and maybe that was like an old school way to do it, but that stainless steel is likely easier to maintain rather than cement. I don't know if that's the answer to that question, but I can look into that. But that's a good question.
It sounds official.
Yeah,
you said it confidently, so I'm going to take it.
That's what would come to me. I mean, I imagine that a lot of like old world winemakers were just had to use what materials they had access to, and there might not have been much access to stainless steel. I think that's a fairly modern, in the grand scheme of things, material. So that would be my guess. And this, especially because they're talking about like intentional, kind of like true to the roots of winemaking. I could see that being why they have that option.
Okay.
But anyway, she is a popper. Let's see what she clocks in at. 14.1% ABV, honey.
I like that.
She gonna get you. So I'm gonna use my iridescent wine key to get this open, and you can get yours at wineandcrimepodcast.bigcartel.com. I'm not stalling or anything.
No.
At all. Here we go.
Oh.
Real nice pop.
Very good pop.
Ooh, she smells good. Look how gorgeous.
That color is just magnificent.
It really is. Oh, God, don't spill on yourself. Don't spill on yourself. Get every last drop. Okay, cheers.
Oh, I got to open my climbing kites.
Oh, get it.
I got a THC seltzer here.
You have a marijuana beverage.
Yep, sure do. Kim Reynolds,
marijuana cigarette. Oh, God bless.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, before we fully dive in, should we take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. If you ask me, nothing stinks more than me after a long day of gardening.
Oh, yeah.
And, sometimes just in general. But, it's hot out, people. It's hot out. And it's easy to get sweaty and stinky and just generally kind of narcy. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you about Lumi whole body deodorant. Unlike certain other deos, Lumi is powered by mandelic acid to control odor in a new way. Lumi delivers outrageous 72-hour odor control everywhere from your pits to your feet, and yes, even your privates. In fact, it was patients' concerns about private part odor that originally inspired the OBGYN who invented Lumi. So fast forward 6 years, and her game-changing whole-body deo has now earned over 300,000 five-star reviews from people like us who love feeling confident from head to toe. And we have a special offer. New customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code and link. So use code GALS15 at LumiDeodorant.com. That's LumiDeodorant.com.
Yeah, like Amanda said, it is hot outside this summer. It's so humid. And I'm sweating in places that I forgot, have sweat glands. Mm-hmm. So this whole body deodorant is a complete game changer. Like Amanda mentioned, it was created by an OBGYN. So it is pH balanced for safe use below the belt. It's also baking soda free and paraben free. It smells so good. You got fresh, bright scents like clean tangerine, lavender, sage, or toasted coconut. It goes on so well. It just it feels good on the skin.
Yeah, it really does.
And if I may just say, the wipes are crucial.
A miracle product.
They really are. So Lumi's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes. Get the wipes. And free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. So use code GALS15 for 15% off your first purchase at LumiDeodorant.com. That's GALS15 at LumiDeodorant.com. And treat your stink.
Treat it. All right, Lucy, I am very excited for your robust segment this week.
Yeah, this is we're going deep.
We're going deep.
And I feel like if you have questions,
I won't ask
I can't
them.
answer it, you ask MJ.
Okay, I will not ask. So
You might. I might know. You can ask.
I'll try.
I love an inquisitive mind.
That's true. You do. I'll try to delight you.
It's easy to do.
Without further ado, what is our background and psych for banned books?
Okay. So, according to Emily J. Knox's research, which is according to MJ's research, book challengers often cite a potential decline in society as reason for challenging books. Mm-hmm. Books challenged through this defense are often seen as out to, quote, destroy our great nation, very nationalist lingo, and actively working to put an end to American society. According to Butler University, there are various specific reasons why a book is banned or censored. And so these include racial issues, if they are about and or, quote, encouraging racism. Mm-hmm. I mean, okay.
Which book banners love to be like, critical race theory is racist.
Yeah.
Because it makes white people feel bad.
It's
Ban
the
it.
dumbest argument
It's
ever.
so fucking unserious. I can't. Anyway, yes.
Another reason would be the encouragement of, quote, damaging lifestyles. So this is the majority of what we're going to be talking about today. Mm-hmm. So this encourages lifestyles that are deemed outside the norm or are considered dangerous or damaging. And specifically, these refer to queerness or...
I was just going to say, this book has gays in it.
Yep. Queerness or interclass relationships.
How will I explain poor people to my children?
Well, in the early 20th century and also stemming from the late Victorian era, that's exactly what it was a much bigger deal. Mm-hmm. Also drug use, etc. Honestly, these are all the most exciting topics.
Honestly, the best parts of books.
Right.
Gay sex, drugs, and anti-racism. Let's go.
And, banging rich people, I guess.
Bonk busting.
Okay, another reason, blasphemous dialogue. So if the author uses God or like Jesus as profanity or uses swear words in a way that a reader can find offensive. Also, sexual situations or sexual dialogue, violence, or, quote, too much negativity. LOL, what?
We're going to get banned.
Yeah. Witchcraft. Yes.
Not a witch.
Religious affiliations, but not like Christian religion, but like less popular religions.
Less mainstream.
Muslim.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that Islam is less popular than Christianity, but
right, it's widely
in this
popular.
country,
But yeah.
in this country,
Stigmatized for sure.
yep, political bias and age inappropriateness. So these books, the age inappropriate books, are censored due to their content and the age level at which they are aimed. So right now, that is the main reason why most books are being banned in schools and certain libraries.
I feel like this keeps happening to us, and I swear to God, we are not like following John Oliver's Last Week Tonight show schedule, but he recently did an episode on libraries, and they talk a lot about this specific issue and how frustrating it is because libraries are already designed and sectioned to not have material like this in the children's area of the library. But people, it's like, that's not enough for people. People are like, well, if I'm not watching my child, they could get access to this pornography.
Oh, for
then
fuck's
watch
sake.
your fucking kid.
Yeah,
That's not my goddamn problem. Give me my library porn.
that's insane.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well, they could wander off and pick up a random book in the erotica section.
Pretty much.
There's no erotica section.
No, not at the library.
I would know if there was.
I've asked. I've sent a lot of emails.
They keep, as of now,
I'm banned from the library because I keep demanding an increase in erotica.
I am age inappropriate.
Yes.
I have been banned. So in the 21st century, like we've been talking about, we are seeing a rise in school book bans. One of the most banned books right now in libraries, specifically school libraries, is a book called Gender Queer, a memoir by Maya Kobabe. It's a beautiful book. It's a graphic novel / memoir, and it recounts Kobabe's journey from adolescence to adulthood and their exploration of gender identity and sexuality. According to a Publisher's Weekly article, this book has been banned in 41 school districts across the United States.
I feel like a lot of people in this book banning camp get really caught up in the fact that this book in particular and other books with strong and true human messaging are packaged as graphic novels, and then they're pissed that it's like, this is made to be appealing to children. And it's like
a cartoon.
because it's a cartoon, and it's like, okay, well, the fucking The Simpsons and like Rick and Morty are also cartoons, but they're made for adults. Two things can be true. I don't know. It's
And, like,
annoying. It's
young
like, this is a weak
kids-
argument.
Young kids aren't reading graphic novels like that because they're illustrated. I mean, they might be. Who cares if they are or
Right.
aren't? But like,
But kids are
it
also curious and interested in the content, and the content is totally lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. I read just a little part of the book, but it's like so honest and so sweet and so like vulnerable. I just really
Well, and if
it's a
your kid
nice book.
if your kid joins the queer revolution after reading Genderqueer, I don't know what to tell you. They were already queer.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of the book.
It's not a choice.
Sorry, Mom.
Oh my God. But I'm not really talking about school book bans this week, but more about government encouraged book bans. So here are some fun facts about book bans in the U.S. according to the American Library Association. The ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom documented 1,247 demands to censor library books and resources in 2023.
Dang.
The number of targeted titles surged by 65% in 2023 compared to 2022. 65%.
Well,
with 4,240 unique book titles being targeted for removal from schools and libraries.
that's wild.
That's so crazy.
Get a hobby that isn't this, Karen.
Fucking seriously.
Take up crochet. It is so much more useful for your role in society.
Go outside.
Touch grass, baby.
Touch grass. Take your meds.
Drink some water.
Look at the sky.
Mm-hmm.
There are more important things in life.
Mm-hmm.
The top 5 most challenged books of 2023 were Genderqueer, the one I've already referenced, a book called All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. Love the
that.
cover. It's just a big rainbow flag. It says, this book is gay.
Incredible.
Also, The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky.
Interesting.
What it was I remember reading that book in like 6th grade. So good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a single sexual thing. It was like 3 friends that didn't have any other friends.
Yeah,
It was
so much
deeply relatable.
So much is subjective about like what is considered wholesome content for teens and tweens and everything in betweens.
Yeah.
That I just find this absurd.
Because your
but
life is becoming less wholesome.
yeah.
Like you are encountering real life adult situations as you become an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And
Heaven forbid there be
honestly-
literature about other people's similar experiences to create community and relatability and share each other's histories. Heaven forbid.
reading a book about these things before you encounter them in real life is like honestly necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like drugs and sex and stuff like that.
Gotta try it.
You at least have a concept of it. It's safer.
Yeah.
And the book Flamer by Mike Curato, which I had
So
never heard of,
much
but I love it.
Queer targeting.
Yes. According to their Titles Challenged in Public Schools and Libraries during 2023 map,
Oh, Lord.
I love that they have a map for this.
Ugh.
2 states that challenged the most titles were Texas and Florida.
Who woulda guessed?
Okay, so the first government banned book case that I'm going to tell you about is that of Lady Chatterley's Lover.
When you said these words to me yesterday so that I made sure we weren't covering the same stuff, I changed. I was like ready to binge every episode of Bridgerton. I'm so excited about this. Lady
book
Chatterley.
It's devastatingly boring.
I'm sure.
It's not a fun read, which kind of makes this whole case so outrageous.
Okay, I can't
It's
wait.
one of the elements of the outrageousness. Okay. On March 3rd, 1873, this fucking wet blanket of a dude named Anthony Comstock, who was the founder.
Anthony Cumsock.
Anthony Comstock. He wishes.
He wishes he had a sock.
He wishes he ever came in his life.
Fair.
We'll get to it.
Oh,
Anyway,
God.
he was the founder of the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice,
Wow.
which was an institution dedicated to supervising the morality of the public. He fucking made up this society himself.
Supervising the morality of the public.
He
What a
got
loser.
pissy that there were like nude paintings in art galleries or
Put panties on the David. This is absolutely foul.
one time he pitched a fit and filed a court like a lawsuit against a store because they had naked mannequins in the window because the window shop
Was being swapped out, like being changed. Yeah.
they were dressing the mannequins.
Right.
But for some
They
amount
were
of time while
temporarily
he walked
naked.
by, they were naked mannequins.
How dare you
He
show
brought a
these
lawsuit.
soft plastic non-genitals to me.
Genitalless.
These eunuch plastic creatures.
These unnaturally smooth shapes.
What a nut.
This guy was such a fucking cumsock. So in 1873, he successfully petitioned for the U.S. Congress to pass an act regarding obscenity in literature. So this was called try to follow along, the Act for the Suppression of Trade in and Circulation of Obscene Literature and Articles of Immoral Use.
What a quippy
Or
act.
the ASTCOLAIU.
Or the ABCDEFGHIJKLMNOP.
Astcoleu.
No. No.
So this prohibited the possession and circulation of any obscene material or a subject of immoral influence in literature, image, or of any other material and manifestation.
Dude,
It was
internet would...
completely subjective.
Yeah. The internet would make this guy die on the spot. It's like those memes about, like, this would kill a Victorian child. This would put Gwyneth Paltrow in a coma. It's like, if this man ever saw the internet, his brain would melt out of his head.
My favorite one of those is, it's like a scene from like Creed playing like a halftime at a football game, and there's like an eagle and fireworks, and like some guy comes in on like a zip line with like a cape. It said the European mind could never.
That would put a Victorian child in a coma.
Totally.
Seeing Scott Stapp perform at a Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah. Okay, so this ridiculous thing known as the Little Bitch Act, just kidding, it's called the Comstock Act.
The Comstock app.
The Comstock Act is still showing up in these book ban discussions today. And this guy
over it.
He sucked.
If like the bastion of your pursuit is an old, washed up Puritan cumsock, you need to evaluate your life.
Yeah. So he was like super duper Protestant. He like visited New York and was offended by the lifestyle.
Fair.
That's fair, but like he took it upon himself to make sure that nothing pornographic was being sent through the mail. Is what this act basically did.
My mail is private.
Yeah, so it criminalized the use of the U.S. Postal Service to send materials considered obscenities, and this included contraceptives, abortifacients, sex toys, personal letters with any sexual content or information, or any information regarding the above.
Well, I, as you recall, was getting like spam mail from that fucking quote unquote church that was like selling talismans to bring you blessed wealth.
Yep.
And I was just responding with their prepaid envelope by stuffing it with porn and sending it back. So
Genius.
Arrest me, daddy. Arrest me, cumsock.
Ew.
Oh no, I've been a bad girl.
I've been mailing porn.
I've been mailing porn to my church friend.
Your porn voice is so disgusting.
They stopped sending me those fucking letters, so
They sure did. It worked.
they only needed like 4 envelopes full of meticulously cut out, no context, just floating nude men to stop.
Someone kept those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a lot left, so come at me, church.
Great. Come at me, Pope.
Come at me, Pope. Porn with your name on it.
So this guy, again, sucked so much that he would like set traps for people by like, he catfished in the late 1800s.
What a dick.
He would send out for contraceptives or information about sex and contraceptives to like, you know, different organizations. He would like make up names. He would make up whole relationships with other fictional people. And then when they mailed him what he had asked for, he would
have them arrested.
And he got a cut of the fines.
Always follow the fucking money.
Yep.
This guy found a grift that lined his fucking pockets that maybe started with him being like pearl clutching about some shit, but he didn't actually care about this nearly as much as he cared about getting paid. I fucking guarantee it.
Oh, absolutely.
Pathetic.
He's a hardcore religious man. He needs to get his cut.
Religious capitalism.
Yeah, so he was gross, and I hate him. But there's the groundwork for the Comstock Act.
The Comstock.
So go forward like 80 years. On April 30th, 1959, New York postmaster Robert K. Christenberry evoked the use of a Comstock-era law to confiscate 24 copies of Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence, and these were published by the Grove Press, which was it was a popular, renowned, very respected publishing company. So the novel Lady Chatterley's Lover follows the story of Constance Chatterley and her sexual awakening with her groundskeeper while her husband is like off with his writing career in the aftermath of World War I.
Do we need to do this for passages?
It's so boring.
Oh, that's fair. The early bonkbusters were not that great.
No.
And the first one, like, that's regarded as the first ever written is called, like, Pamela, and it's just a series of letters. And it's like this 15-year-old handmaid who's basically being, like, Stockholm syndromed by the master of the house into being his little wife, but she resists him, and the whole thing is about how, like, holding on to your virtue until after you're married, even when it's so hard to resist, is so sensual. It's like, what? She was 15.
Yeah,
but that book's not fucking banned.
Well, because the moral of the story is that of moral Christian
chaste
morals,
virtue.
Chaste virtues. Yep, exactly. So the husband's away. She's fucking bored. She starts fucking the gardener.
Love it.
Essentially. It was banned in the U.S. when it was originally published in 1928 because it was considered to be too pornographic and explicit, even though, again, this is a very boring book.
They should read Scruples. It has a blowjob scene in the first 5 pages.
Wow,
it's incredible. Judith Krantz loves pubes, so there's so much pube imagery.
Really?
Oh,
How much is there to say about pubes?
She just really likes them.
Oh.
She just makes sure to mention the pubic hair of basically anyone engaging in a sex act in her book.
She likes that bush.
She likes that bush.
Good for
Love
her.
it for her.
Okay, so yet Grove Press believed that the novel would no longer be controversial if they published their own copy because, again, they're a very highly respected publishing company. So they're like, it's not trash. It's actually very good. We're normalizing this.
Yeah.
Well, so then the postmaster starts confiscating these copies. And alongside those copies, Kristen Berry, who's the postmaster, also confiscated 20,784 copies of circulars from Reader's subscription.
This bitch.
I know. I'd
be so pissed. I'd be like, where the fuck is my Mad magazine?
Exactly. So he confiscated just 24 copies of the book, but then like 20,000 little pamphlets that's like
intercepting people's magazines.
These are the new things from Grove Press. This book, Lady Chatterley's Lover, this book, and this book. Like, it's not even, it was
basically an advertisement.
It was a literal advertisement.
That he's confiscating because it mentions this salacious but extremely boring book.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this pamphlet, it was a book club with over 14,000 members who were primarily university grad students and faculty. So they were like literary consumers.
Intellectuals.
And Grove Press wasn't a paperback promoting publishing house. It was a reputable literary publishing company with over 300 classic titles in the market, authored by people such as Herman Melville, Henry James, and Mark Twain. So we're not talking about...
No, it'd be like, we're going to steal every ad about upcoming publications from Penguin because I don't like this book.
Exactly.
Fuck off.
Regardless of the company's reputation, Kristen Berry thought that the novel was salacious and in violation of a Comstock law. The General Counsel Post Office Department served both companies with letters of complaints, and later on, the Postmaster General Arthur E. Summerfield, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee. Great.
Oh, you don't say.
Fucking great.
If it walks like a Republican and it talks like a Republican.
And it bans books.
It's probably a duck.
So this duck affirmed Kristen Berry's decision in a letter to both parties. So he's like, yes, they do have a case. Yes, you are going to court. But Grove Press was not going to go down without a fight. In June 1959, Grove Press filed complaints alongside readers' subscription at the Southern District of New York District Court against Kristen Berry.
For stealing their fucking mail.
Yes. I mean, and for just being a fucking Dickens.
Like, you are hereby charged with being a fucking Dickens.
Stop being a Dickens. Stop it. That's my favorite workaround.
He received 3 pss, 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 and
Hey, now.
one little squirt of water to the nose.
Oh.
For his crimes.
Ran upstairs and hid in the back of the closet.
Which reminds me, where's Beans? She
Probably climbing up your microphone again.
She was being a Dickens and harassing Blanche, and I had to shoo her away, so.
Okay, so Grove Press was represented by a First Amendment lawyer named Charles Rembar. Along with their complaint, the company also submitted an affidavit by Barney Rossett, who was the president of Grove Press, as sworn evidence. Rossett emphasized that the company saw the novel as an important cultural contribution, and the novel underscored Lawrence's exploration of social, moral, and aesthetic themes. It's like flowery. It's like a very much like a classic, like a boring-ass classic book. He even went as far as stating that the inclusion of explicit language and sexual content was integral to the author's artistic vision. Of course. On June 30th, 1959, all parties had a court appearance before District Judge Frederick Van Pelt Bryan, Judge Bryan. So Rembar, the Grove lawyer, took a similar approach to Rossett when defending the novel. He stated that the novel did indeed have literary merit and was not, quote, commercial pornography, therefore affording the novel protections under the First Amendment. Rembar explained that Lawrence, the author, had denounced sex without love in the novel. So again, that's like...
Yeah, it's still pure-ish.
Yeah, pure-ish, yeah. And preached against the effects increasing industrialization had on an early 20th century Britain. So they basically English majored their argument. They were like,
this is important.
Yes, there is one scene where she like touches his boner, kind of, but it's like written so boringly and like that's not really the point. The point is that sex without love is not the real deal. And, you know, a more overarching theme of industrialized Britain.
Sure.
You know. So,
which, like, you need a little sex to sell. So
yeah.
I get it.
So, again, this novel is not arousing in any way.
Lucy tried to crank her hog to this and could not.
I tried.
She's still recovering from how hard she tried.
Ow. It stings.
Ow, it burns.
So that was the purpose of the novel, but what was funny about all of this was how quickly everyone turned against the post office in this case, because like these dudes brought up a very good argument, and they just made these guys look so fucking dumb so
Foolish.
Quickly.
It's also such an invasion of like your privacy and your property. To have
I don't even know how they knew what was being sent through the fucking mail.
Right? People are opening. That's fucked up. Hard pass.
In Rembar's argument, he discussed how the post office handled the detainment of the novel and had an internal hearing essentially stating that their argument was baseless and wasn't even actually an argument.
Sure.
And this convinced Judge Bryan. Throughout this discussion, the judge became increasingly, quote, concerned with the question of whether the Postmaster General had any authority at all under the statutes in this situation. He even went as far as to say that the Postmaster General had no informed expertise on the subject.
Just
You're the
deliver
postmaster.
the mail, bitch.
Yeah, that is
We're
your
not
job.
asking for anything else from you. Shut the fuck up and deliver my porn.
Basically, where the fuck is my porn?
Where the fuck is my porn?
It's an emergency.
This is a fucking a literal fucking emergency. I need my porn.
I need my porn.
I need it, please. I need it.
God.
Screaming desperately the word please is like one of the funniest fucking please. I need my porn. Please, Postmaster General. So gross.
Lady Chatterley, please.
Please, I need my Lady Chatterley.
You don't, though.
I really
do not
fucking
like
don't.
this book.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, so Rembar saw that comment as an opportunity to say that Summerfield's finding had no meaning and it was up to the court to find the novel obscene or not.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other side of things, the postmaster's attorney, whose name was S. Hazard Gillespie.
No, it wasn't.
Hazard.
That you put 3 names in among a bunch of like bingo balls.
S. Hazard Gillespie.
And Hazard is my middle name.
Is there a Mrs. Hazard?
There's about to be.
Okay, so Hazard Gillespie didn't agree with Rembar and said that the court's job was just to decide whether or not there was substantial evidence to support the decision of the Postmaster General.
Oh, for God's sake.
These are semantics, and this is so stupid.
Depends on what your definition of the word is.
Yep. He argued that the Postmaster did have a foundation for his argument and stated that the main message of the novel is if one party to a marriage is unable to secure sexual fulfillment within the marriage, he or she is justified in seeking it outside the marriage. Okay, and
how does that affect me?
First of all, no. And second of all, so?
Yeah. Both no and so.
No, and so?
Okay.
First of all, how dare you?
Yeah, I do have a lot of questions. First of all, how dare you?
Judge Bryan was not buying this, and he said he didn't believe that the book's discussion of illicit affairs had anything to do with the question of obscenity.
Not Brian it.
He's not Bryan it. Hazard Gillespie refuted this by reading passages in court where Constance is fondling her lover's wang and argued that these passages were dangerous because they detail the decline of a woman of a respectable background. So this is the mixing of the classes.
Oh, okay.
This is, it was written in the 20s. We're now in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what they're pivoting to.
Well,
they're like, she was a respectable, rich woman.
Right. Who is jacking off her gardener, which also has like deeply racist undertones if they're being like, they can't mix.
It's more of a classist thing than a racist thing. It's also a British novel.
True. I just think they're probably all interconnected as they
always
fucking are.
Yeah.
Because if we'll allow class mixing, when will it end? Can you marry your dog?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, that might have been kind of the underpinnings of the argument that these people were making because this was an American trial.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, either way, it was...
It's gross.
Whether it was spoken or not.
Yeah.
That was their major problem with this.
Fuck that.
On July 21st, 1959, Judge Bryan delivered his decision. In his statement, he clarified, quote, "The Administrative Procedure Act makes the reviewing court responsible for determining all relevant questions of law, for interpreting and applying all constitutional and statutory provisions, and for setting aside agency action not in accordance with law."
Don't die.
Therefore, the court did have a responsibility to investigate the matter further, and in his statement, he also addressed and established the reputation of Grove Press and Reader's Subscription as reputable, saying that their advertisement and distribution of the novel was not trying to appeal to the prurient-minded whatsoever, meaning they weren't marketing this towards, like, sex-obsessed people.
Or even, like, trying to market it toward pure people that are like, they're not trying to change anyone's status on sex.
They were marketing it towards people who liked to read books.
Literally. There was no other agenda here.
None. However, okay, so they were doing everything right. But Judge Bryan did not think the same of the Postmaster General. So this is my favorite part. He basically was just like, y'all are fucking dumb.
I can't believe I even have to fucking do this. What is my job?
So the Judge Bryan brought attention to how Summerfield had only relied on 3 court cases to support his 4-page argument for why the novel should be banned.
Okay.
He slammed Summerfield for cherry-picking the evidence to support his argument, or lack thereof. The way the letter was written assumed the reader knew Summerfield's thought process and didn't explain really anything. It was
So
just
it made no
poorly
fucking
written
sense.
and it made no fucking sense.
It's just the rantings of an undersexed madman.
Yes. To counter Summerfield's argument, Judge Bryan used the outcome of another court case called United States versus one book called Ulysses, which states that, quote, a work of literary merit is not obscene under federal law merely because it contains passages and language dealing with sex.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've ever read Ulysses, but that is another very difficult book to get through. And it's like, okay, so there's a little bit of sex in an otherwise very dry book.
Yeah, pretty sterile storytelling.
Yeah. He also quoted Roth versus United States from Summerfield's argument to emphasize that the mere portrayal of sex is not sufficient to deny constitutional protections. So Summerfield used a case that argued like kind of both sides. So the judge was like, oh, you want to cite that case? Here's the other half.
Here's the other
it.
side. Yeah. Oh my God.
So Judge...
Imagine if this fucking guy had read Twilight.
For real.
Just imagine it.
Dick. 50 Shades of Grey.
Jacob imprinting on baby Renesmee.
I don't know what you're talking
banned.
about.
Oh, girl.
I'll ban it.
Listen.
You like your YA novels.
I do. Also, Passages Season 2 was the Twilight book. So you could at least get the experience the first one without having to read it.
I would love that. This
I
has
got
been
you,
a
babe.
much more entertaining format.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Judge Bryan concluded that Lady Chatterley's Lover was an, quote, honest and sincere novel of literary merit and did not offend any community standards. Therefore, it was not obscene and could be sent through the mail. And if that was not a win enough for Grove Press, the judge further voiced further confusion about the Postmaster General's decision. So he went back and was like, seriously. He wondered,
fuck off.
He wondered why on earth Summerfield concluded that the book offends contemporary standards when there was an overall acceptance of the novel as reflected by its extensive editorial commentary. It was, like,
fine.
Critically very acclaimed. Like, a lot of people have read it, talked about it. All of a sudden, this mailman comes along and it's like, I have a problem with it.
Fucking ruins it for everybody.
Yeah. Tried to.
Please, I need my porn.
Please.
Please.
Unhappy with this decision, Kristen Berry appealed the decision, which was heard before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in December of 1959. The circuit court judges Clark, Waterman, and Moore agreed with Judge Bryan's decision, but they reinvestigated it because that was their job. But they found the book, again, not to be obscene, and even said that the book's description of sex were not shameful, but straightforward and natural.
But we will arrest you if you file another fucking appeal. We're sick of your ass.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Go
lay
home.
down. Following Grove Press's legal triumph, Rossett, who again is the president of Grove Press, remained unwavering in his commitment to publish quote unquote banned books. So this just lit a fire. He was like, this is amazing.
It's like, oh, you didn't like Lady Chatterley? Guess what I've got on deck, bitch.
Yeah. This resolve extended beyond mere defiance, shaping Grove Press's editorial direction towards modernist and avant-garde literature, radical politics, and erotica. So
now they own Pornhub. It's crazy, you guys.
Between 1959 and 1966, Grove Press published books such as Samuel Beckett's Crapp's Last Tape. Never heard of that.
Dunstan checks in.
Robert Gover's $100 Misunderstanding, and the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay, the first two titles
Only heard of one of those.
literally sound like a Mad Lib.
Crapp's Last Tape.
Craps. I can't. I want to fucking read that.
Yeah, I think I do too.
I want to read the $100 scandal. What was that?
Misunderstanding.
$100 misunderstand. Story of my fucking life. Honestly, every time someone with ADHD has a misunderstanding, they lose $100. ADHD is
Probably.
expensive. We forget shit.
You lose stuff.
We lose stuff,
You buy
fines,
stuff.
replacements, renewals. My whole life is $100 misunderstanding.
You need rocket money.
I have it. Thank God.
So the Lady
Hot.
Chatterley's Lovers case was far from a singular pursuit of making certain books for sale. It was a pivotal effort to, quote, shrink the scope of anti-obscenity laws and to advance literary freedom of speech. Rossett's insistence on publishing controversial works reflected not only a commitment to free expression, but also a strategic push to challenge and reshape societal norms regarding licentious literature.
Get it, King.
So this last part, I think, is my favorite part because it kind of puts everything into perspective and like shows the lasting effects. So this case also eliminated the legal risks associated with distribution for bookstores and publishing houses because obviously that could have been a very sticky, slippery slope before these precedents were established. In addition, the press coverage of the obscenity proceedings along with Grove Press's advertising campaigns has resulted in a massive public interest in buying the book.
Yeah, it's like this mailman had the Streisand effect where he's like, I don't want anyone to see this. And then it got publicized because it was in the fucking court. And now it's like everybody wants to check this out now. You tried to make it go
A sex
away.
book? What?
Yeah, well, now it's more prevalent than ever.
Seriously. So while Grove Press had resolved one issue, it opened the door for another to arise. On September 6, 1959, less than 2 months after the trial ended, the book was number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list for 17 weeks.
Incredible.
The only problem was Grove Press didn't have an exclusive copyright on Lady Chatterley's Lover.
Uh-oh.
So that meant that other publishers could publish the same.
Lady
thing.
Chatterley, Taylor's version.
Totally. Taylor's version.
Taylor's version.
Well, they kind of did make a Taylor's version.
Yeah.
They made like a Rossett's version.
There you go.
So people were there was a big interest in the book still. However, Grove Press's market exclusive unexpurgated version was no longer the only version. Publishers like the New American Library and Pocket Books produced their own cheaper paperbacks of the book. Pocket Books edition was only 35 cents. Publishers Weekly lamented that the public image of the whole book trade had been cheapened by the Chatterley sweepstakes.
Okay. Heaven forbid we make books accessible.
Right.
It makes it cheap. Fuck you.
It's very
It's so fucking classist.
yeah, it is. While Grove Press had been able to fight off the censors, the publishing house's success was overshadowed by others wanting to capitalize on their victory. So they, I mean, I think they're still around. Grove Press.
Give it a goog.
Give it a goog. Oh, it's Grove Atlantic now.
And they own Pornhub.
But maybe.
They don't.
Their
That's
imprints are Black Cat, Evergreen, Venus, Library, and Zebra.
cool.
Yeah, it's an alternative book press.
I like it. With a rich history.
Uh-huh.
Very cool.
So that is half of my segment.
Ooh, okay.
It's a long one. It's a
I
long
love
one
this.
today.
What are we pivoting to now? What other porn are
So
we banning?
before it was like sex, like between classes, and now we're going to get to a little bit of the queer themes.
Okay.
So during the Cold War era, specifically in the late 40s and 50s, the government conducted book banning campaigns that were part of a larger coordinated effort to restrict materials deemed disruptive and subversive to society. So this national campaign was led by Senator Joseph McCarthy. Ever heard of him?
Oh, God, this motherfucker.
Yeah. who is most famous for the Red Scare, which was a fear-mongering crusade alleging that innumerable communist sympathizers and Soviet spies had infiltrated important U.S. institutions, including the government. There's Soviets everywhere. Communists, anyway. While McCarthy-era book bans often targeted mass consumption, like, for example, widely adopted textbooks, book bans also occurred on a smaller scale, impacting books read for amusement. Regardless of the target audience, McCarthy-era book bans focused on getting out of circulation books relating to communist beliefs and racial justice. During this time, government figures, such as McCarthy, conflated anti-familial and anti-normative representations of gender and sexuality with communist ideology.
Yup.
They were like, oh, you're gay, you must be a communist. Basically, so stupid. The government saw members of the LGBTQ plus community as nonconformists to the traditional Christian rhetoric that they were attempting to reinforce. That they saw their deviation from tradition and norms as a sign of moral weakness and compromised values. So not only did it see members of the LGBTQ plus community as morally defective, it saw them as a national security threat.
Bullshit.
During a speech, McCarthy insinuated that there were communists infiltrating the State Department and that he knew of, quote, 57 cases of individuals.
Oh, okay.
He just made up a number.
Yeah, prove it.
Yeah. 57 who had
fucking cuck. Prove it.
Who had pledged loyalty to the Communist Party from within the government.
Okay.
What does that even mean? Like, specifically, who are we pledging to? Is there like a chant? Is there a special handshake?
Right.
Do you just like, I declare bankruptcy?
I pledge to Antifa.
Yeah. It's so fucking dumb.
It's so fucking dumb. I can't.
By implying that there were these individuals with divided loyalties, McCarthy made the argument no longer just about protecting the country's values, but about protecting the country's national security.
We just cyclically apply these same fucking Red Scare strategies to whatever the new trend of, things that white supremacists are scared of.
Yeah.
Over and fucking over again. It's why we're banning books now. It's why we ban critical race theory. It's why don't say gay bills get passed. It's all this same bullshit. And we have this like fucking whole pretend separation of church and state. But the majority of people in charge just like want some Christian nationalist puritanical garbage.
Yeah, and it's all based on fear. It's ridiculous.
Yes, it's so fucking stupid. Who people fuck does not apply to anybody else but them. Fuck off.
Get out of my underwear.
Consensually, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Of course. So it was no longer a fight between the U.S. and a foreign entity. It was now a war that the United States had to wage from within against its own people.
Yep.
In the midst of book banning efforts, Speaker of the House Sam Rayburn, who is a Democrat from Texas, appointed Representative Ezekiel Candler Took Gathings, who is a Democrat from Arkansas, to spearhead the House Select Committee on Current Pornographic Materials. And
look at all this porn. Study it.
Wasn't there a thing like within the last few years about they were like Republicans were like blasting porn inside the State House or something?
Dude, they're always doing wild, unhinged shit.
It's so dumb.
Be like, this is what our children are looking at.
No, it's what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's what their parents are looking at.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is often referred to as the Gathings Committee. It was founded in 1952. This committee sought to investigate the potential effects of, quote, comic books, pocketbook literature, and other immoral, obscene, and otherwise offensive publications on the morals of American society.
There's an incredible supercut in the Last Week Tonight episode on libraries and librarians where people like in Congress are reading excerpts of books they want to ban. And like people like moms at like town halls are like giving the reasons why they think they should be banned. And it's just these like absolutely puckered butthole mouthed white people reading about like humming and squirting and shit, and it's so fucking funny. I think there is one clip where like a senator is talking about like sucking dick. Like it's so good.
Oh,
you need to watch this
amazing.
episode. It's fucking incredible.
I'm watching that as soon as we're done with this.
You're gonna love it. It's so good.
This is like the third time I've gone immediately from recording to watching
Last Week Tonight.
Last Week Tonight.
I'm obsessed with that show. It's so good.
So the committee's majority report, which was published in 1953, summarizes their investigative efforts, which concluded with a recommendation that the federal government should censor material deemed inappropriate. So the main objective of this bipartisan committee was to determine the extent to which current literature, quote, containing immoral, obscene, or otherwise offensive matter or placing improper emphasis on crime, violence, and corruption was being made available to the American public through any form of distribution. All of the themes investigated were referred to in the reports as pornographic materials. They didn't like parse it out. Their task also included assessing whether or not the laws that were in place at the time were sufficient to prevent the publication and distribution of such books.
Got it.
So if they weren't sufficient, then the committee was to include their recommendations for such legislation. Okay, so as a result, the Gathings Committee found that there was an alarming amount of pornographic materials at the disposal of the American public.
Just wait till the internet gets invented by Al Gore.
For real.
Y'all are in for a rude, cummy awakening.
A brilliant awakening.
Brilliantly
A sexual awakening.
Cummy sexual awakening.
Their investigation enlisted the help of the Post Office Department.
Not again!
Get out of here, Post Office.
Please, please!
Please! You sound like a Nickelodeon character when you do that.
I know, it's so ridiculous.
Please, please,
Please!
it's the repetition for me that does it.
It's so fucking stupid.
I
Anyway.
know.
Back to the post office being fucking narcs. Poor narcs again.
God. Well, they included everyone. The post office, the Library of Congress, the Department of Justice, police departments from various cities, and all of the attorneys general from all the states, as well as Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands.
Just imagine what we could have used that funding for instead.
Fucking seriously.
God.
The committee also surveyed people that were likely to be in favor of censoring such material, including representatives of religious and civic groups like parent-teacher associations. God.
Sparkle motion.
Sparkle motion. They also included the voices of book publishers and independent retail booksellers, although I suspect that they were talking to them less than like the fucking conservative, puritanical others. The committee needed all of the evidence necessary to make the claim that literature with pornographic elements was degrading to the very youth that was supposed to become the face of American morals.
Okay. The youth is like, I don't fucking read that shit.
This is like just such a their objective was just really apparent from the outset, and it just they were just gunning for censorship. So in their majority report, the committee submitted a list of books that expatiate homosexuality and queer themes. Among the list of perpetrators, they included a book called Women's Barracks, which was written by Tereska Torres. It was published in 1950 by Fawcett Gold Medal, which was a publishing house. The book follows accounts of what life was like in the Free French Army women's barracks during World War II in London. So it's fictional. It's pulp fiction. It drew heavily upon Torres's own accounts as the secretary to the Free French leader Charles de Gaulle in London.
It's like fictionalized based on her experience.
Exactly. And her experience was very unique and important. She was like this, secretary, Charles de Gaulle's secretary during World War II. Like that's
She saw some shit.
Yeah. While the book was considered to be mostly autobiographical, the story that unfolded within recounted multiple homoerotic instances between the women.
Okay. Let them eat each other out.
Yeah. And
Fuck
I don't even
off.
think it was really that graphic.
Probably not.
The sexual encounters in the books defied the conventional ideologies behind platonic relationships at the time, and the Gathings Committee found the material pornographic.
Mm-hmm.
The title
Sex is between a man and a woman.
Yeah, the two genders. The title of Torres's Pulp Fiction appears in the Majority Report over 30 times, so they kept being like, well, look at what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did the committee submit this title as an example of pocketbooks containing unjustifiably lewd queer content, so the pocketbooks meaning those like little 35-cent paperbacks, the cheap ones that anyone can get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So not only that, but they used the book as a main focal point in their argument that low-cost paperback books were some of the worst offenders of the moral code imposed by the U.S. And wouldn't you know, like what happened with Lady Chatterley, by the time the hearings began in the House on December 1st, 1952, Women's Barracks had sold over 1 million copies, quickly becoming one of Fawcett Gold Medal's biggest hits.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Any press is good press, babes.
Throughout the hearings, the committee engaged with members of the publishing company in an attempt to classify the book as obscene literature. They used a previous hearing that took place in Carleton County Court in Ottawa, Canada, to further support their case. So in that case, Judge A.G. McDougall declared that Women's Barracks was a book of obscene nature that, quote, deals almost entirely with the question of sex relationship and also with the question of lesbianism.
What exactly is the question of lesbianism?
I don't know. I don't know.
Riddle me this, Ag
Judge.
McDougall.
Ag McDougall.
I do have questions.
I have lots of questions, many of which could probably be answered by reading this book.
Many of which could probably be answered by quote unquote lesbianism.
I guess. Let's find out what that's all about. He further explained that the material is one that deals with, quote, unnatural relationships.
Unnatural.
And its content could only be seen as something that could, quote, deprave and corrupt any audience.
Okay.
Speaking of, I was with my sister last week.
Were you corrupting her?
Probably.
Yes.
But she was telling me about one of her friends who is a lesbian, and she was talking to one of her other friends who had historically only dated boys, and the lesbian friend was like, just go for it. I mean, just try women, you know? And the friend was like, yeah, I should do that. I should do that. Like the lesbian friend later was like, so easy to convince straight girls that they might be bisexual. Because like whatever, you know, two guys probably wouldn't go there, but like women like regularly quite open-minded to the idea of possibly dating someone of the same sex.
Listen,
if they hadn't
many
before.
of us have tried and will certainly try again if their husband dies.
Yeah, it's just a little more open-minded. But so the friend like went on, I don't know, does Grindr service lesbians too? I don't know. A lesbian app, a dating
The gay
app.
internet, as Scott calls it.
The gay internet. Matched with a girl. They like were messaging and she was like, hey, I just want you to know, like, you sound really cool, but like I've never dated a girl. I'm just kind of like trying it out, seeing if it's something that like I'm interested in. And the girl she was chatting with was like, I'm in the exact same boat. She was like, I just was just gonna try it, give it a try. So they just met up for coffee.
Together.
And I don't think they hooked up, but
Who knows?
It doesn't matter. It was just kind of funny that it's like women are so much more like open-minded about it.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. So this lesbian book could deprave and corrupt any audience. Apparently,
It's so
specifically,
easy to make women think they're bisexual.
it's so easy to convince straight women that they're
We're
bi.
so impressionable.
Okay, in the committee hearing, the council used this information to support the claim that women's barracks contained pornographic materials and therefore should be removed from the market. However, the editorial director and vice president of Fawcett Publications, Ralph Foster Day, it's Daigh.
Okay.
I'm going with Day. But
Sure.
it could be anything, honestly. He defended women's barracks. He maintained that it was not only a, quote, good book because of the sales it had made for the company, but also because of the entertainment and education it imparts. He was just like, people like it. It's entertaining. It's a fucking book. Like,
Yeah.
relax.
Get over it. Yeah. Fucking chill.
As the book discusses Torres's experiences with the Free French Army, Day maintained that the book's content was merely giving insight into what life was like as a woman soldier in the French Army. When
People can't know that.
When asked by the council if the majority of the book took place in the women's barracks, Day
The book
said,
called Women's Barracks, you mean?
Day gave a cheeky response stating, quote, "That takes a considerable portion of the book, yes."
You fucking idiot.
Holy
shit.
Along with maintaining that there was value in the content of the book, Day provided a letter of approval for the book from a guy named John Bakeless, who was a well-known author and professor from New York University. So Bakeless argued that it would be insincere and hypocritical to not describe the homoerotic events that happened in the women's barracks.
Because it's true.
He stated in his okay, so I don't agree with his argument, but given that this was in the mid-50s.
Sure. We're very much operating within the time.
Yeah. So he states in his letter, quote, "These literary forms are based on conflict. Much of that conflict is between good and evil." Essentially, Bakeless argued that if Torres had not included the lesbian sex interactions in the book, it would no longer mimic the sordid and evil aspects of life, and it would lose the realistic autobiographical element that gave it merit.
Yeah, I don't like that he's aligning like lesbianism with evil, but I get what he's saying.
So thus, sans homoerotic content, Women's Barracks would no longer be a faithful adaptation of Torres's diary, but an artificial, sugar-coated retelling of her life. I get what he's saying, but like you said, it's like, the argument's not great.
Nope.
But
it's what we had at the time.
Mid-50s, this is where, Bakeless further supported the publishing and dispersal of the book by stating how many of the great classics, quote, have required reading for schoolboys, meaning that books often include entertainment for men. Therefore, why should there be pushback on entertainment for women? He demonstrated this by noting that Macbeth and Hamlet also drew upon the themes of murder and adultery, and how Hamlet goes even further by depicting instances of incest.
Yeah, dude, Oedipus. We had to read that in school.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Really enjoyed
the picking and choosing of what is considered, egregious and unacceptable is fucking bullshit.
Well, it's a female author. It's about all women. Lady Chatterley's lover was from a female, perspective. They just have a problem with women's sexuality.
Yeah.
And queerness.
Which is pervasive even now in, people's pushback on literature, especially salacious literature. There are lots of people who, in the context of Twilight, which obviously I've been really obsessed with recently because we're covering that for Passages, this is so recurring where it's like women shouldn't be reading/writing this because it's going to promote women doing unladylike things. They shouldn't like this. This shouldn't be entertaining them. It's going to give them bad ideas. Okay, well, I already had a lot of really bad ideas, and the books
it's
are
actually
not
giving me
them
better
worse.
ideas. You know what I mean?
It's annoying.
He also states that the lesbian scenes in women's barracks are less descriptive than those found in Plato's Symposium and as graphic as those found in the Iliad. By bringing into the conversation classic pieces of literature, Bakeless puts into perspective the frequency with which books with obscene and morally degrading themes are praised by the general public and intellectuals alike. And since the classics do not face backlash for depicting such scenes, argued Bakeless, neither should Women's Barracks, which dealt with real-life happenings rather than fantasy. So Day further pushed back against the committee by stating that, quote, homosexual inquiries into the State Department and other government agencies sparked curiosity in the public. He claimed that the investigation and repression actually drove interest in homoerotic literature. So people were probably like, oh, that exists? I need to check that out.
Wait a minute.
For this reason, he elaborates, the public should have access to women's barracks and other books that touch on such themes, for it would be immoral not to satisfy the public's interest in knowledge of such topics. That's what's fucking immoral here. Give the people what they want.
Satisfy me.
Please.
Please. Please.
Furthermore, it was an opportunity to expand readership and publish stories that appealed to the LGBTQ plus community. They're realizing that is a huge audience.
Yeah.
They continued to emphasize that the scenes in the book were comparable to heterosexual sex scenes in popular books such as Gone with the Wind, and that sex relations will have good sales no matter what audience it's intended for.
Sex sells, baby.
He knew what he was fucking talking about.
Get him reading.
Unfortunately, these counter-arguments failed to sway the conservative committee, which decided that the contents of the book were, in fact, pornographic material that was too obscene and morally disruptive for the general public's consumption. In order to prevent the book from being banned nationwide, the publisher agreed to add a narrator. They wrote in a narrator to this book.
In the like margin notes.
To be like a fucking school marm scoldy voice about what was happening in the book.
This is written in here, but we don't approve of this.
Exactly. This is bad, but we're going to tell you everything about it.
Yeah.
So they wrote in a narrator that disapproved of the interactions between the characters. This newly added voice was used as a method to deter people from committing the same so-called mistakes as the characters in the book.
Okay.
It was meant to teach the reader that homoeroticism was immoral and problematic. But despite that, multiple states pulled the book off the shelves and banned it for containing obscene material. This book was considered as propaganda glorifying lesbian relationships. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was not an acceptable moral influence on its consumers. While the committee's verdict denounced women's barracks, the book continued to sell despite or perhaps because of its negative connotations.
Streisand effect, I'm telling you.
What is the Streisand effect?
Barbara Streisand, I don't know if she still lives there, but she had a house like on the coast in...
The Hamptons?
No. California.
Malibu?
Malibu.
Why do I
on
read
the
your
coast.
mind sometimes?
You're so good at this. And there was like a research article about coastal erosion, and that included drone shots of all these properties along the coast, and one of those properties was Barbara Streisand's house, and she wanted that taken down, even though this was in like a really small publication. Like it wasn't like a viral photo of Barbara Streisand's house. It was like included in like a state-run investigation, from some climate fucking
Yeah. It was like a paper
about
publication.
erosion. Yeah. So it was like not a big deal. But she pitched a fit about the fact that her house was pictured in one of the many coastal photos that were included. And then the fact that she was pitching a fit gained all this attention. And then so many fucking more people saw the photo of her home than ever would have if she had just let it go. And even if the people who originally saw it, there's nothing that like indicates it's Barbara Streisand's house. Like, no, people wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
People don't fucking just recognize your house, girl. Like,
From an aerial view.
calm down. Calm down.
I love
And
that.
so, yeah, then it went viral, and now it's referred to as the Streisand effect when somebody is trying so desperately to like get rid of something that they don't want associated with them or they don't want seen, and all it does is have the opposite effect. It just spreads it like wildfire, and then everybody fucking sees it.
It's like, despite what you've heard, I did not make a paintbrush out of your hair.
I swear.
It's the same thing.
I didn't. Yeah, that's baby Streisand effect right there.
Okay, so instead of deterring the public from the book as originally intended, the trial drew more attention to a book that otherwise would have gone largely unnoticed.
Literally, yes.
Pulp fiction books like Women's Barracks were supposed to be a cheap read, only costing 25 to 35 cents. And for reference, a carton of eggs at the time went for 50 cents. Women's Barracks was never expected to become as popular as it did.
There you go.
It drew attention to the new subgenre of lesbian pulp fiction and became a trailblazer in books with overtly lesbian themes.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, a lot of women read.
Yeah, and women like erotica just as much as the next guy.
Yeah, we're patient enough to read it instead of downloading it off of the internet.
Yeah, really. Less bandwidth, more analog.
Yep.
Anyway, so that is my very robust segment.
Wow.
This stuff is just, it blows the
fascinating.
mind how much people care about the dumbest shit.
Well, some of this seems small, but I really truly believe that it's all part of a broader scale of control of what we consume, what ideas we share.
Yep.
That's what it fucking comes down to.
Yeah, totally.
We'll definitely get to it.
It's fear and it's control and it's, it's religiosity just being a little bit on the fascist side.
Truly.
Christo-fash.
Keep your eye on that.
Anyway, shall we take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors?
Let's do it.
I really, really hate doing laundry because my laundry is in the basement. It's next to the litter boxes. It's my least favorite activity. I loved it when I was carrying a child and I had an excuse not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But those days are over. So I'm really actively searching for ways to limit my laundry. And that is why when I heard about miracle sheets that require 3 times less laundry because they stay cleaner and fresher longer, I was all over that stuff.
Oh, you were raving about it.
Yeah, Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry.
Yeah, and it's not magic, y'all. It's science. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets, so no more gross odors. And if you're like, how the heck did they do this? Well, they had help from NASA. That's right, NASA. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So on top of already being self-cleaning, they also help you stay cool so you're not like sweating and soiling your sheets as much. It's a whole system, people. It's also designed for your skin. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne, so sleep clean with Miracle. And these sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. And they feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. I love them.
I do too. They feel exquisite. So go to trymiracle.com/gals to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code GALS at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. What on earth could you be waiting for? Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/gals and use the code GALS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/gals to treat yourself. And thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Thank you. All right, before I start, your segment reminded me that I want to recommend this awesome, brilliant trans content creator. She's on YouTube. She has it's a time sync, but you can put it on in the background. Her channel is called ContraPoints, CONTRA points.
On Instagram?
No, I just watch her stuff on YouTube.
Oh.
And she did a 3-hour video essay on Twilight.
Oh,
and
my
that
God.
This sounds not up your alley at all, but she goes so deep into like the origins of romance novels, their cultural impact, feminism, queer rights. It's like, it's so fucking good. It's so fucking good.
Is this her?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. So I do highly recommend take an afternoon, clean your house, pour some wine, listen to the ContraPoints Twilight video essay. It's really informative, especially if you're like a book nerd or you love romance novels. It'll teach you a lot.
All right.
So my case has nothing to do with romance novels, really, but maybe some stuck in there, but it's fine. In my segment today, we're going back in history to Lithuania and its rule for a time by Imperial Russia.
Wow. We haven't been to Russia in a while.
It's been a minute. I'm not going to pretend to be super knowledgeable in this area, but I did learn a ton from this research, so I'm excited. So in the late 1700s, what was once the like Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was essentially split off and divvied up, with the majority of this land controlled by Russia. By the mid-1800s, Polish and Lithuanian uprisings and insurrection attempts had Russia fucking biting their nails over this threat to their occupation. People were like, fuck this. We fuck off, basically. And they were really organizing and rising up against Russian imperialist government.
I know that like some of my ancestors were like Polish, Russian, and they left because of
They're probably occupied.
this stuff.
Yeah. In an attempt to shut down this resistance, the Russian imperial government doubled down on, quote, Russifying the Lithuanian population under their rule.
God.
The intention was to strip them of their historic roots, especially rooting out their Roman Catholic religious practices in favor of Imperial Russia's official Eastern Orthodox religion.
Oh, no.
And the Roman Catholic religious practice became like such a target because we have to remember that in these times, the church was so foundational to communities. People were educated within the church. People were fed. People communed together. So much happened in the church that like isn't as prevalent today. And so they were
It was like a full identity.
Yeah, and a full community. And if that community didn't align with what the government wanted, then the government wanted to shut that shit down.
Okay.
From Atlas Obscura, quote, Tsars tried early on to enforce loyalty, finding a particular target in the Roman Catholic Church, an historic Lithuanian institution that Russia saw as a threat to its power. Russian authorities demolished numerous chapels and prohibited the construction of wayside shrines, which were essentially omnipresent throughout Lithuania. There were roughly 2 shrines, Roman Catholic shrines, per kilometer.
Oh my
But
God.
not prepared to give up their culture, Lithuanians would build new shrines anyway, which I fucking love.
Build the
Like,
shrines, babe.
Knock our shrines down. We're going to have another one up in fucking 15 minutes. So SARS, Russia. SARS.
Yeah, Peter's already on his way down with a new shrine.
He's balls deep in a new shrine. Just fucking move on. Part of this strategy of Russification included Tsar Alexander II's laws allowing only Russian language materials in occupied Lithuania, imposing what is referred to as, quote, the Lithuanian press ban.
Oh.
So, from Lucy's lover, Britannica, the Tsarist government treated the Northwest region, which as historic Lithuania, apart from the southeastern lands, was called after 1832, as an integral part of Russia. And they're like, we need to assimilate this populated area of Lithuania because we occupy them. They're Russian. And for us to like have Russian expansion, they need to be fucking on board. So they were like real concerned with this specific, fairly high density, formerly Lithuanian area.
Got it.
In 1832, the University of Vilnius, founded in 1579, was closed. So they're shutting down universities. In 1840, the Lithuanian legal code, which dated back to the 16th century, was abolished. Like their own little insular
Constitution.
constitution, out the door.
Dang.
After the revolt of 1863, because obviously people are like, fuck this, they're uprising, the policy of Russification was extended to all areas of public life. Russian was the only language sanctioned for public use, including education. Books and magazines in the Lithuanian language could be printed only in the Cyrillic or Russian alphabet. By 1865, all Lithuanian language use of the Latin alphabet was banned.
This is this is what they did to the Native Americans in the U.S. in more recently than this.
Yep. By 1866, any printing or importing of printed items in Lithuanian was banned. Only about 55 printings of Lithuanian books that had been translated into the required Cyrillic alphabet were in circulation. Jeez. So of like there was like a scourge.
Wow.
I'm not saying that there were only 55 books left, but like 55 historic pieces of literature had been translated into the alphabet and were like the only ones still surviving at this point. This created, fucking obviously, a little black market economy for the printing, smuggling, and distribution of Lithuanian language materials and books.
Ooh.
Being caught with such materials was faced with a range of punishments from fines to exile to Siberia.
Oh my God. No, thank you.
Death.
For printing books?
Yep.
Wow. Or just having one?
Both.
Jesus.
Smuggling, having, it was bad. Now, I spent a lot of time listening to pronunciations, and now I've been drinking wine, so I'm going to do my absolute best. Enter Motiejus Volentius.
Ooh.
A Catholic bishop of Samagisha, one of the 5 cultural regions of Lithuania. This guy was a well-known historian and one of the most prolific Lithuanian writers of the 19th century. He had some cash on hand and was like, you know what? I'm going to quietly finance and organize printing of Lithuanian materials abroad and help smuggle and distribute them to the public.
You know what? I got some free time.
Yeah. He helped usher in the movement of the Knygnešai, which means book carriers in Lithuanian.
Knygnešai.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool word.
It's very cool. Y'all, this was like intense. This was like cartel drug smuggling operation for written materials.
Dang.
The Knygnešai had been at work before Motiejus, I'm so sorry, came in to assist. They were not really an organized network. Like, they sort of worked together, but they were mostly operating as individuals, working alone to sneak over the border with goods, printed works.
I'm having flashbacks to your to the Beyond Stupid robberies with those huge books they couldn't even carry.
For real. I know, if I hadn't used that case for Beyond Stupid, it might have fit here, but yeah. A lot of these were small books. They're not like rare historical books. It was a lot of periodicals, newspapers. I mean, this is their internet.
Yeah.
This is just their access to like their information, their stories, their histories. That's
anything you read.
Anything you read. Quote, they carried books in sacks or covered wagons, delivering them to stations set up throughout Lithuania. They performed most of their operations at night when the fewest guards were stationed along the border. Winter months, especially during blizzards, were popular crossing times because they were like covered by snow.
Mm-hmm.
And the fucking Russian soldiers that are just standing out there at the border, which we'll fucking get to, were so fucking cold and distracted that they could just sneak by in a covered wagon full of books.
Paint it white, you're fine.
Pretty much. Lithuanians went to great lengths to conceal their illegal books. The 40 Years of Darkness by Jozas Vaisnora reports of female smugglers who dressed as beggars and hid books in sacks of cheese, eggs, or bread. Some even stapled tool belts to their waists and pretended to be craftsmen, disguising newspapers under their thick clothes.
Ooh.
This was the only way at the time to access information that wasn't under Russian imperial control. So, of course, it was super fucking dangerous. And, like, honestly, I'm seeing so much, like, early TikTok ban bullshit in this story. Like, history always repeats itself. For governments to control a population, they have to control the flow of accessible information so that they can then control the narrative about what's happening in the world. And when folks find ways to share their stories and truths, that's a threat to an imperialist system. That's exactly what was happening then. It's consistently happening. So, like, keep sharing your stories. So while this grassroots smuggling ring was already operational, Motiejus came in with the funds to organize it on a larger scale. Now, he's a bishop, so he had ulterior motives.
Oh.
With the Imperial Russian crackdown on Roman Catholicism, he really wanted to be able to print and distribute more prayer books in Lithuanian. Like, that was his first priority.
just because most of his people could only read and speak Lithuanian.
Correct.
Okay.
And part of this quote-unquote Russification, they scourged the Lithuanian language prayer books, and they were targeting the Roman Catholic Church, which was the like main religion of the Lithuanians.
Yeah.
And so the Russians are fucking getting rid of all of that shit.
Okay.
And so this guy's like, I need to reprint my shit in Lithuanian.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, Prussia, Russia with a P, but you're not associated with them. You're right next door. Let's make a deal. So he started sending funds to neighboring Prussia to literally build his own printing press so that he could build write and print religious materials.
Little Gutenberg.
Yeah. So by 1867, he had a network of priests smuggling the prayer books back into Lithuania to distribute.
I love that.
But as movements do, it grew. The operation grew. Beyond religious texts, Motiejus started commissioning original Lithuanian works as well as writing his own. With the expansion of the operation, it moved to become more secular, focusing on writing and distributing Lithuanian history and culture in an act of direct defiance of Russification.
Oh, so it's like, this is our culture. This is our history.
We got to preserve it. So Motiejus, in this little Prussian operation of like a single fucking printing press, printed upwards of 20,000 works.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
God.
They printed a lot of shit.
Wow.
So to distribute a growing volume of these texts, Knignashai fucking organized together. They formed smuggling societies with fun names like the Morning Star, Stimulus, Rebirth,
Afterbirth,
The Truth, The Ray of Light, etc.
I love this.
They were fucking organizing without the internet. This was like covert letters, word of mouth, and these folks were able to make contacts overseas, including as far as the United States, to get assistance in printing their texts and importing them.
Oh my
often
God.
through Prussia. They distributed textbooks, yearbooks, science books, fiction, folklore, religious texts, and more. Newspapers,
Erotica.
periodicals, pamphlets, hopefully erotica. I didn't see that explicitly.
Twilight.
The first edition of Twilight. As the smuggling operation grew, so did Russia's security at the border. They arranged 3 lines of security, the first consisting of soldiers lined up so densely that they could, like, see and chat with each other, which might not sound that impressive, but Russia is fucking huge, and they were covering miles of their borders with a fuck ton of soldiers. So they weren't like shoulder to shoulder, but they were within like a few hundred yards of each other. You could like holler at your next buddy down the line.
God.
So it was dense. The second line of defense was another line of soldiers, but less densely populated. The third were Russian Empire police who focused on riding into Lithuanian towns and villages, trying to suss out smuggled materials and work with local informants, because every resistance has to be wary of fucking rats, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
So if a smuggler was caught by any of these lines of defense, they would often be tied to a post and whipped, then often imprisoned or exiled to Siberia, or if they tried to run, they would just be shot and killed right there. On the spot for having books.
Extrajudiciously.
Mm-hmm. Materials confiscated from captured smugglers were piled up and burned.
The burning.
For years, the movement continued despite death, exile, and imprisonment. In 1875, Motiejus died and left the burden of leadership on his successor, a Lithuanian nationalist named Jurgis Bielenis. He was pretty fresh out of university and ready to fuck shit up for the Russian imperialists. He was over it. He carried on the operation for over a decade, creating the Garsvii Knignashai Society in 1885. I'm sorry, I've been drinking. This is hard. This grew even larger than his predecessor's operation, with members in the thousands, and earned him the nickname King of the Book Carriers.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Nearly half of all the books brought into Lithuania through East Prussia can be attributed to Jurgis.
Oh my God.
Despite manhunts and rewards offered for his capture by the Russians, he was a slippery minx and managed to evade capture. He was never caught.
Dang.
He was deemed a fugitive by the late 1890s. Quote, by the late 1800s, the Knignashai were getting creative. Some managed to enlist the help of Russian police, for example. In 1895, the head officer of the Ariogala in central Lithuania joined the smuggling conspiracy. Others exploited loopholes in the press ban. In one instance, Lithuanians printed texts on slabs of clay as the Babylonians had once done.
Holy shit.
To the chagrin of authorities, clay tablets weren't considered books, so they technically weren't illegal. Love that.
I love that they just followed that rule, too. The authorities were like, oh, shucks.
Oh, fuck. Well, yeah, all right. You can keep your tablets. Locals also set up secret schools that taught Lithuanian children their language using illegal books because Imperial Russia at this time had outlawed any other education other than like Russian sanctioned education. So any schools that existed were either destroyed or overtaken by these new rules. And so they set up secret schools where they would like send their kids to the state sanctioned Russian school, but then after school they're going to Lithuanian school. So to avoid attention, Lithuanian children still attended Russian operated state schools, but it was in the Lithuanian schools, they were told, where their real education happened.
Wow.
It's also important to note that like all of this was operated by basically peasants. Like these folks doing this work were not in high level positions. Some of the leadership of this this underground shit was, but the day-to-day carrying out, the smugglers, the educators in these towns, the people creating these schools were just your neighbors. They were totally common folk working together to preserve their histories and share their truths and teach that to the next generation. So like, it's just a reminder that the power has always been with the fucking people. Like, and it doesn't matter what position you hold. Like, you can always contribute to resistance.
It also shows like how deeply entrenched our identities are in our culture, our language, our history, our stories. Like just reading the types of things that they were able to smuggle in, like science books, folklore, yearbooks, religious, like all of that makes you think about how all of these things come together and create the identity of your community and how much is lost if you lose your language and your written texts.
Yeah, I mean, Russia was working overtime to wipe out their history to assimilate them as Russian.
Very intentionally targeting these things.
So like when you get rid of books or literature like this, you're erasing people, histories of real fucking people that are deeply important culturally and societally. It's fucking wild.
And this directly ties to the shit that's going on today.
1000%. This is absolutely an imperialist tactic to like fucking, again, create control. Erase communities that are not deemed worthy and take over.
Bad, toxic, unhealthy, bad for the country and the nation.
Right. It's estimated that around this time, the influx of literature between 1891 and 1901, while like Jurgis was in charge of this operation, Russian officials confiscated nearly 200,000 smuggled publications by 1901. And as the Lithuanians pressed, LOL, get it, on, 1901 to 1904, the Russians would confiscate nearly 400,000 more publications.
So they're catching up. They're catching these people.
Well, they're catching some of these people, but what some historians believe, based on the estimated number of books confiscated by Russian authorities, is that Lithuanians were smuggling in works by the millions, which I actually completely believe because, again...
So percentage-wise, it's not that much.
It's not that much. Again, they are bringing in underground newspapers, some of which were illegally printed in hidden shops right in Lithuanian villages.
Ooh.
Like, this isn't just millions of books. It's it's paper. It's essentially like anything, a pamphlet in Lithuanian was banned. So that being confiscated would have been part of that 200 to 400,000 number. And so imagine how much was actually being printed and circulated if that's how much they confiscated. Because there's no way they confiscated all of it. They definitely didn't.
No, definitely not.
So I completely believe that. By the end of the ban, nearly every Lithuanian town and village had their own stockpile of illegal books and a secret Lithuanian school. Like, they were not fucking around.
And a secret Lithuanian school.
They were done with this Russian imperialist bullshit.
Oh my God, I love it. They're just all set. They laid the groundwork for decades. They were fine.
We're good. Sure, send us to Siberia. Fuck you.
Yeah. We'll bring our books.
Lithuanian peasants were organizing local board meetings and working together to petition the Russian government to overturn the ban. And this was working. And even Russians were realizing that the ban was not fucking cool, especially Russian students and intellectuals. They're like, wait, maybe we should let them read in their own language.
Yeah, maybe.
This is going to sound really radical, you guys, but I don't feel comfy with this.
It makes me feel squicky.
It makes me feel so uncomfy. So, declared a failure in 1897, the ban was finally lifted in 1904.
Also, the resources alone to enforce this stupid shit.
Can you they deployed so many resources to crack down on essentially the written language.
Yeah.
It's a waste. It's such a fucking waste. Just let these people fucking live. I can't. While Russia thought that lifting the ban might chill the Lithuanian resistance out a little bit. You're like, okay, you can have your books. Now stop resisting.
Yeah.
Nope, it only gave them more of a voice. So Žorgis remained steadfast and public in his defiance of Russia, working to mobilize Lithuanians toward their independence, and his leadership helped usher in the February 1918 Act of Independence of Lithuania. So yes, Lithuania regained their independence when my grandmother was 1. So, history is just the present, y'all. Let's not fucking pretend.
The Helen, baseline for all these historical events.
It gets me every time.
Yeah.
It gets me every time.
It's shocking every time.
It's fucking shocking. But unfortunately, Žorgis would not live to see it. He died a month before their independence was formalized. I believe
Žorgis.
Of illness, natural causes. He wasn't taken out as far as as far as I could see. But isn't that?
That sucks. But he made it almost till the end.
Sad. Yeah. He did so much of the organizing to get to that point, and then not to be able to see it in his lifetime is really fucking devastating. But he certainly died knowing that he was fighting for his people. And so regardless, he's a very important historical and cultural figure, especially to the Lithuanian people. And he remains to this day a symbol of culture, pride, and independence in Lithuania, with statues and stamps and a national holiday, the day of the Knygnešai, in his honor.
Oh, stamps.
And that's my little case today about book banning.
That was really uplifting.
It's interesting, right?
All this shit is very interesting.
There are so many ways to resist, babes. Start your own fucking school. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm just going to start a school quick.
Yeah, why not? Community school. Let's do it.
Well, thank you so much, MJ.
Yes, MJ. This was fascinating.
This was so fascinating. I feel like I could talk about this for another week, but I'm not going to. But I could.
We're creeping up on 2 hours, so we gave you what we promised.
We did, yes. Okay, thank you, MJ. Thank you, listeners. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Wine and Crime. Our cover art is by Danielle Sylvan. Music by Phil Young and Corey Wendell. Editing by Jonathan Camp. Our production manager is Andrea Gardner. For photos and sources, check out our blog at wineandcrimepodcast.com. You can follow us on all the socials at Wine and Crime Pod. If you have questions, answers, or recommendations to share, email us at wineandcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to spread the word. If you'd like to show your support and get access to all sorts of wine-fueled bonus content, visit our Patreon page. Cheers!
When your first stop is Maverick, your next stop can be any adventure you crave. We've got great values on fuel, fresh-made bonfire food, and all your favorite snacks and drinks. So hurry over and have a blast on your next stop. Maverick. Adventure's first stop.